It never ceases to amaze me, the precious time we spend chasing the squirrels around in our brains, playing out our dramas, worrying about unwanted facial hair, seeking adoration, justifying our actions, complaining about how slow the internet connections are, dissecting the lives of idiots, when we're sitting in the middle of a full-blown miracle that is happening right here, right now. We're on a planet that somehow knows how to rotate on its axis and follow a defined path while it hurtles through space. Our hearts beat, we can see, we have love, laughter, language, living rooms, computers, compassion, cars, fire, fingernails, flowers, music, medicine, mountains, muffins. We live in a limitless universe overflowing with miracles. The fact that we aren't stumbling around in an inconsolable state of sobbing awe is appalling. The universe must be like, what more do I have to do to wake these bitches up? Make water, their most precious resource, rain down from the sky? End quote. Hello, my friends. Welcome to It's All Magic. I am your guide, your host, and your friend, Devin Hine. And here we'll be discussing how to make your life truly feel like magic. I believe that our very existence on Earth is nothing less than a miracle, and that we all have so much potential to learn, to grow, to experience, and to create during our short time here. It is both my passion and my pleasure to walk this path of life optimization by your side, where we'll discuss topics like passion, purpose, intuition, manifestation, physical well-being, and much, much more. I'm a yoga teacher, a meditation and breathwork facilitator, and a national board-certified health and wellness coach. But more importantly, I am an eternal optimist, a lover of life, and a forever student. It is my hope that with each and every episode, you too will finally start to believe it really is all magic after all. Ready to dive in? Let's do it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another magic-filled episode of It's All Magic. I am absolutely thrilled about today's content. When I was first starting a podcast, I could not wait to have an episode just like this one. So before I let you know what we will be talking about today, I of course want to grant us the opportunity to take a few deep breaths so that we can dive into the goodness, feeling open-hearted, relaxed, and excited. So if you are ready to take a few deep breaths with me, you can of course close your eyes if you have that opportunity. If you don't, this will work just as magically. And before we even take our deep breath, I just want you to take a couple gentle movements that you feel like you might need. So even if you're on a walk right now, or if you're sitting down, maybe you shrug your shoulders up to your ears and then relax them down your back. Maybe you need to take a couple head rolls over to the right and over to the left. Maybe you just want to massage your shoulders and your neck for a second. Or maybe you just want to try tightening one side of your mouth, tightening the other, and then finding yourself in a gentle smile. And once you've taken those small moves that you feel like you need, I want you to empty out from your previous breath and then breathe in through the nose, filling up all the way. And open mouth, let it all go. Beautiful. Even deeper the second time, breathing in through the nose. And open mouth, sigh it out. Third and final one, make it the deepest, fullest breath yet of your day. Inhale through the nose. And open mouth, let it all go. Beautiful. You can flutter open your eyes if you got the chance to close them. I hope you're feeling a little bit better. I was excited before we took the breaths, and so I'm still feeling excited after the breaths. But if you are in a different place emotionally than I am today, then I want you to come back to those breaths as many times as you need them today. So taking those breaths is always the greatest gift, just a chance to turn inwards, ask yourself how you're doing, and of course, what you need. So with that, I will segue into today's content. Today, you might not know this, but you have actually entered into Devin's Cozy Reading Nook. For as long as I can remember, I have been an absolute bookworm. I love reading from the time I was a young child, and my mom taught me how to read using Hooked on Phonics. I was obsessed. I wanted my parents to read to me constantly. I wanted to try reading constantly, and I am just a daydreamer who loves to get caught into other people's stories and learning about different cultures and countries and foods and music and ways of life. I love just learning about how big the world is and also having every kind of life experience I could ever dream of through the lens of characters in books. So on any given night before I fall asleep, you can find me reading in bed, either with my handy dandy Kindle that I swore I would never get because I was one of those people that loves the smell of books and the feel of pages, but I have to admit, it's incredibly handy. So either I'm using my Kindle or I am reading one of my many physical copies of books. I even remember one summer when I was 9 or 10 years old, I decided I wanted to try reading as many books as I could. And so at the beginning of the summer, I am guessing that I went to the bookstore with my mom or something because I had this massive stack of books and I would place it on the living room couch in my house. And every single day, I would finish getting ready before my sister and my mom. This was over a summer. So my dad was working, but my mom was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And of course, my sister and I weren't in school. So I would get ready before everyone else so that I could come down, run down to the couch, sit down with my massive fat stack of books. And I would take the top one and I would read them all throughout the summer. And I got through the whole stack and I loved being able to read voraciously. I love getting so hooked on a book that I cannot put it down. I love dreaming about the characters, imagining what is going to happen next in the story. Or if they are books like we will be discussing today, I like having my perspectives completely expanded. The books we will be talking about today are actually my favorite spiritual books that I have ever read. So these are the books that if you are looking to go on a spiritual journey, if you are already in the midst of a spiritual awakening, or if you're simply looking to dive a little bit deeper with spirituality and kind of expanding your own views and perspectives of the world and the way it works, I highly recommend these 6 books. I have divvied up these 6 books into 3 categories with 2 books per category. So we will be diving into that shortly. Before we do, though, I have a couple fun housekeeping announcements. So the first one, I want to give a shout out to my lovely friend Ming, who is the one who recommended this episode. And I'm bringing this up, A, because I adore Ming and want to say hello if you're listening to this, but B, if you ever have suggestions, requests, ideas for episodes that you want to hear on It's All Magic, please let me know. I am all ears. You can either direct message me at my Instagram, which is It's All Magic Podcast, or you can email me at itsallmagicpodcast@gmail.com. And any way that you can find me, I will be sure to read your suggestions and put them in my little queue. Second housekeeping announcement that is so exciting is that in the spirit of all of these upcoming holidays, I am doing a giveaway. And specifically, I'm doing a giveaway of the books that we are going to be talking about today. So if you want to be entered into the raffle to win some of these books, what I want you to do are these 4 steps. So step number 1, I want you to rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, whatever platform that might be. Step number 2 is to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Devon Rochelle Hine. So that's DevonRochelle, and then last name Hine, Heyn. So the first was rating and reviewing. The second is subscribing to my YouTube channel. The third is following my Instagram, which is It's All Magic Podcast. And then the fourth is tagging 2 friends in the first Instagram post that I upload for this episode. And that post will be really obvious because I will be talking about the giveaway. So it's those 4 things: rating and reviewing, subscribing to YouTube, following on Instagram, and then just tagging 2 friends that you think might enjoy the podcast as well. And if you do those 4 steps, you will be entered into my little raffle giveaway where 3 people will be chosen as the winners, and each of those 3 will win one of the books that I'm talking about today. And you win the book of your choice. So once you have done all 4 of those steps, what I want you to do to let me know that you have done them is to either direct message me again on Instagram, which is at It's All Magic Podcast, or you can email me at itsallmagicpodcast@gmail.com. Just let me know that you have done all 4 of those. I will have my methods of checking behind the scenes, and then you'll be entered into the raffle. If you do this, or if you want to be part of this giveaway, you can do it between December 6th and December 12th. That is when the raffle will end. So do it before December 12th if you want to be sure you're in it. It'll be December 12th at midnight PST as the end. And then I will choose those 3 lucky winners to get their very own spiritual book to help them delve deeper into their own spiritual journey. So that's the giveaway. I will remind you at the very end of how to do this, how to enter into the giveaway. And if you are confused at all, you can, of course, find it on my Instagram. It will be my very first social media clip that I post when I upload this exact episode on December 6th. So you can go to my Instagram at It's All Magic Podcast. You can watch this video again and read the caption to figure out what exactly is this giveaway. Amazing. So with all of that fun stuff, we are diving into my favorite spiritual books ever. And as I mentioned, I have divvied up these 6 books into 3 categories. So we have 2 books per category. The 3 categories are essentially the categories or the themes or the lessons that I find the most inspiration in. So category number 1 is remembering where we came from and how this world works. Oh, I just got chills. Category number 2, reminding us of our unlimited potential. And category number 3 is reminding us of what's really important in life. And I will end with that one because it will make you feel all the good vibes, all the good emotions, and then you can go on with the rest of your day feeling inspired and excited. But we'll start with category number 1, which, as I mentioned, is remembering where we came from and how this world works. So the first book that I want to share with you all is actually my favorite book of all time. It is my most gifted book, meaning I have gifted this book to more people than I can count. And the reason why is because this book forever changed my life, and it forever changed the way that I view myself, this world, and this life, and how all of it works together. The entire time I was reading this book, I had full body chills. I remember reading this my junior or senior year of college at Ohio State, and I lived alone in my apartment, and I would read it at night, and I had such chills that it almost felt a little spooky. Sometimes I would get scared. Not that the book is scary, but it is so awe-inspiring that there's kind of an eerie feeling when you read it sometimes. So that book, drumroll please, is Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian L. Weiss, who's a doctor. So Dr. Weiss. Oh, I could go on and on and on about this book, but what I plan on doing with each of these books is giving you kind of a brief synopsis of what it's about, maybe what I loved about it, and then sharing a quote or two that kind of encapsulates what I find so incredible about the book. So this book is incredible because, as it says on the front, it is a true story of a prominent psychiatrist, his young patient, and the past life therapy that changed both of their lives. So in this book, Dr. Brian Weiss shares that he has never been a spiritual person. He has always been agnostic, if he even labeled it, but he quite honestly wasn't even that interested in spirituality. He was a deeply scientific mind and just simply wasn't interested in the spiritual, the woo-woo, the supernatural. And so after having practiced for decades as a Yale-trained psychiatrist who was completely skeptical of anything that didn't seem scientific or able to be proven through evidence, he had this experience with a patient that forever changed the course of his life. In this experience, he regressed a patient far enough back in a hypnotic state that she actually was able to access past life memories. And I know for many of you listening, that might sound crazy. That might not be your personal religious or spiritual belief. But I promise you, if you pick up this book, your life will never be the same. There are no negative concepts or lessons in this book. It is all positive. I am only spreading love and light here, but this book, regardless of your spiritual or religious beliefs, will blow your mind immensely. So a couple of the quotes that I wanted to read were the following. This is a brief explanation of kind of the therapy and working with this particular patient, Catherine, and how it changed his life. So he said this: "Then I met Catherine. For 18 months, I used conventional methods of therapy to help her overcome her symptoms. When nothing seemed to work, I tried hypnosis. In a series of trance states, Catherine recalled, quote, past life memories that proved to be the causative factors of her symptoms. She also was able to act as a conduit for information from highly evolved, quote, spirit entities. And through them, she revealed many of the secrets of life and of death. In just a few short months, her symptoms disappeared and she resumed her life, happier and more at peace than ever before." And I promise you guys, that is how you will feel reading this book as well. I never reread books because I feel like there are way too many books in the world to read. This is the only book I have ever reread. Not only that, I've read some of his other books as well, and there's an incredible one called Only Love is Real. And it's this really crazy story of these two patients that he has, and he ends up using this same hypnotic therapy, this hypnotic method. And for both of them, they recall these past life memories. And through the couple of years that he's working with these two clients who don't know each other at all, he recognizes these patterns and similarities in some of these past life memories they're recalling, except that in these memories, they are both characters in the other's story. And essentially, the book is about soulmates and what are soulmates and does it exist and what does that mean? And even thinking about it now, it makes me want to cry. It gives me chills. My point is, you guys, if you want to change your life, I recommend getting this book, Many Lives, Many Masters. I also recommend gifting this to someone this holiday season. The reason why I'm doing this episode is not only because my friend Ming requested it, not only because I love books and I love talking about books, but also because this is the season for giving gifts. And it's also the season where we start to think about how we want to be in the next year, and perhaps using the last few weeks of the year where, many people are off of school and off of work to read some books that will inspire you to have an even more incredible 2024. So if you're either interested in buying a book for someone or buying it for yourself to get yourself inspired, this is the way to go. So that is book number 1, Many Lives, Many Masters. It is everything you could ever want and so much more. If that wasn't up your alley, I recommend book number 2 in the same category. So remember, category 1 is all about essentially where we came from, who we are, and how this world works. So the second one is called Ask and It Is Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks, but also known as by the teachings of Abraham, which I will explain. So Ask and It Is Given is a book that I read earlier this summer, actually, so just some months ago. But I had first listened to one of the books by the same author back in college. As you can probably recognize at this point, college was a huge spiritual awakening point in my life, and I am forever grateful for those years because it made me who I am today. And I remember walking around the Ohio State campus listening to some of the Abraham Hicks teachings. So the reason why there are 3 authors, I mentioned Esther Hicks, I mentioned Jerry Hicks, and then I mentioned Abraham. The reason is that Esther and Jerry, especially Esther, does a practice called channeling. So before you think I'm crazy, let me explain. So when someone channels, they are essentially able to communicate the thoughts and expressions of non-physical spirits in other realms. So if you've ever heard of a medium is simply a channel that they might get visions, or they might hear things, or they might simply know things, known as being claircognizant, and they are able to channel that information through their voice, through their words, so that people in the physical realm, aka us, can understand them. That is exactly what happened with Esther Hicks. So back in the 1980s, Esther and Jerry were already married. Jerry was always really interested in spirituality. He had Ouija boards growing up. He would read every spiritual book. He had these big questions that he always wanted to answer, or always wanted to ask the right person, if only he could find the right person. Whereas his loving wife and partner, Esther, was not interested in anything spiritual or seemingly woo-woo at all. In fact, Jerry, for years and years, had to read some of these spiritual books early in the morning before Esther even awoke, because he knew she would not be into it. Anytime he would bring up some sort of spiritual topic, she would just say she's not interested. Essentially, Jerry, talk about this topic with someone else, please. So I say all of that because you need to know that Esther had no interest in anything spiritual. She didn't believe it. She thought that things like Ouija boards were probably just evil or the work of the devil. And so fast forward into the 80s. Jerry ends up finding this book at a library called Seth Speaks by a woman named Jane Roberts. And he realizes through this book that Seth is a non-physical entity that is being channeled by this author, by this woman, Jane Roberts. And he becomes obsessed with this book. I mean, he's never heard of anything like it, and it fascinates him. Of course, when he first brings it up to Esther, she thinks he's absolutely insane, but he keeps explaining it, and she starts kind of warming up to the idea, okay, maybe I could understand how this happens. And then they found out from a stranger one day at a restaurant who randomly said to them, have you guys heard of Seth Speaks? Which they thought was weird, by the way, because they'd never mentioned to anyone that they'd read the book. The stranger asked them about it, and he proceeded to say, well, Jane Roberts is dead. She just died. The whole situation was so weird. They're just sitting at a restaurant and they hear this. And they were really upset because they had always, especially Jerry, had really wanted to meet Jane. And so a few weeks later, it was even more synchronistic when they found out that there was a woman coming to Phoenix, Arizona, where they lived, who claimed to channel a being named Theo. And they thought, oh, what the heck, we'll go. And when they planned on going and they made the appointment, Esther even said to Jerry, I know you have 1,000,001 questions you want to ask. This is kind of your thing. I'll let you do all the talking and the asking. I'll just sit there and listen, but you know this isn't really like my thing. And Jerry thought, yes, completely fine. I have so many questions to ask. I actually appreciate the time. So they went to see this channel who channeled Theo. And Jerry asked all of his questions that he had been keeping in his journal for years and years and years, and it was fascinating. In fact, even Esther found it to be quite fascinating and quite convincing, to the point where they decided to make a second appointment for the next day. And when they went the next day, Esther decided, you know what? I might have some questions I want to ask too. And so she began to ask some questions. And at the very end, before they left, this woman, this channel, turned to Esther and asked her the weirdest question. Esther didn't even understand what these words meant, by the way. But the channel said, would you like to know the name of your spirit guide? And Esther said, okay. What is that? And the channel said, well, you are very shortly going to have a clairvoyant experience yourself, and you will be told the name directly. And Esther thought, what the heck is this woman talking about? What does that even mean? But as they were parting ways, the woman recommended for both of them that they should try meditating. And when Jerry and Esther both said, oh my gosh, that's not really our thing, they both had kind of their own baggage around meditation. The woman said, when I say meditation, all I mean is I want you to sit in silence for 15 minutes in comfortable clothes, and I want you just to focus on your breath. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything crazy with your thoughts or say any sort of mantra. Just sit there in silence, set a timer for 15 minutes, and focus on your breath. And so they went home and they thought, we could try it. So they set a timer for 15 minutes. They sat down, they focused on their breath, and the time went so quickly that when the timer went off, it jolted them both almost awake. And they said, let's do it again. And so they set the timer again and they went for a second time. When the second timer jolted them awake, they said, let's do it again. So they did it a third time. And this became a practice that they did every single day for about 10 months until something very odd happened. So in that 10th month of meditating every single day, during one of the meditations, Esther's head started to move in kind of these weird movements, and she didn't know what was going on. And she was not moving her head. She had been practicing her meditation, sitting in complete silence, just completely relaxed, when her head starts to move and kind of bob all over the place. And after a few times of this happening, somehow she started realizing that her nose was spelling out letters and words. And the first time this happened, she noticed that her nose actually spelled out, I am Abraham. I am your spiritual guide. I love you. I'm here to work with you. And she thought, what the heck? But at this point, because she had gone to see this channel who channeled Theo, who had said, you will have a clairvoyant experience soon and you will hear the name of your spirit guide, she was open to it. And so this happened for quite some time, where she was actually able to channel these messages from above using her nose, the movement of her nose as her head was bobbing in her meditation. A few months or weeks after that, she was laying in bed with Jerry one night and her hand started just kind of tapping on his chest. And she said, Jerry, I'm not moving my hand. That's not me. And she thought, this is so weird. I just need to go type at my keyboard. And so she got to the keyboard and started just typing without thinking. And over and over and over for pages and pages worth, her hands were just saying, I want to type, I want to type, I want to type, I want to type, I want to type. And it was not her moving her fingers. So then the third stage of this happened a few weeks or months later. Her and Jerry were in the car driving on the highway, and they were sandwiched between these two huge trucks. and they suddenly realized something bad is about to happen. We are about to get squashed. And all of a sudden, Esther had this sensation, almost as if she was about to yawn, where her mouth was kind of moving on her own. And she spoke the words, "Take the next exit." And she said, "Jerry, that wasn't me, but we have to apparently take the next exit." And they took the next exit and they were fine. And at that point, they were feeling high on this experience, saying, "What just happened? I think it's Abraham." And so that was the beginning of Esther channeling what they call Abraham, which is actually a whole group of non-physical entities. They've given themselves the name Abraham just so that we can better understand, comprehend that this is, a being we're talking to, but it's actually a group, multiple beings. So anyway, they have written many, many books at this point. They have, workshops, seminars, all the things, but this book is so incredible because the entire thing is channeled, and it's channeled by Abraham, who is, as I mentioned, this wise group of beings that has lessons and tips on how to do this thing called life. They're able to explain how we come into being and how we're able to manifest the things we want in our lives. What are the rules of the universe that will allow us to create the life that we desire, more or less. And so there are more quotes to read from here than I could ever do in one episode, but I wanted to read you this one. So in the book, they say, "There is no desire that anyone holds for any other reason than that they believe they will feel better in the achievement of it, whether it is a material object, a physical state of being, a relationship, a condition, or a circumstance. At the heart of every desire is the desire to feel good. And so, the standard of success in life is not the things or the money. The standard of success is absolutely the amount of joy you feel." And in this book, they actually teach you methods for how you can feel more joy. If you've listened to past episodes, you will have heard me talk about the emotional spectrum or the scale of emotions. That actually comes from this book. And in that scale or spectrum of emotions, they talk about how emotions like joy and hope and optimism and love and gratitude are at the very top. So they have the highest vibration or frequency if we're talking about energy here. And then the lowest vibrational or frequencies of emotions are at the very bottom. Things like despair, hopelessness, grief. And so they give you methods, in fact, many, I want to say it might be like 24 different methods for how you can move yourself up that spectrum, no matter where you are on that scale. And these methods are so incredibly useful, and some of them are so incredibly fun that Cal and I on weekends used to sit down and say, should we play one of the Ask and It's Given games? And they worked. They worked wonders. So I highly recommend reading this book if you are interested in anything I've talked about. So channeling, the laws of the universe, how you can manifest the life you desire, which is why it's called Ask and It Is Given. The basis is that you ask for what you want. You emotionally and energetically bring yourself up to the level of the thing that you're asking for. So for example, if you want, if I want a thriving podcast and a thriving YouTube channel and to travel the world, I have to be in a state of joy and expansiveness and inspiration, because the people that I'm speaking to through this podcast or through my YouTube channel will feel my energy. And so if I want to create this bubble of joy and expansiveness, and for that to bubble out, create this domino effect, I have to start by feeling that way. And it will naturally manifest more of that into my life. So that is kind of a short synopsis. If you want to hear it explained far better, I recommend picking up Ask and It Is Given. So moving on to category number 2. Category number 2 is books that remind us of our potential. And the first one I wanted to start with is actually one of the first self-help books I ever read in my life, which is saying something because I have read a lot of self-help books. So I read this probably 7 or 8 years ago, and I read it at a time when I was first beginning kind of my spiritual journey. And I really needed something simple, easy to understand, and quite honestly fun. And that's exactly what this book is. So this book is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. You Are a Badass, as you can already tell from the title itself, is hilarious. This woman has fantastic personality, and if I remember correctly, she even had this really interesting story where she found herself age 40, completely broke, completely out of options in her life, and she used the methods that she writes about in this book to completely transform her life. So You Are a Badass. I remember laughing. I remember crying. I remember writing down so many quotes from this book. In fact, I want to read you my favorite quote ever. And I have actually used this quote in workshops, in speeches, in Instagram captions. This quote both makes me laugh and reminds me of how incredible we are and how incredible this world is. So if you also believe that it's all magic, you will love this book. So here's the quote by Jen. "It never ceases to amaze me, the precious time we spend chasing the squirrels around in our brains, playing out our dramas, worrying about unwanted facial hair, seeking adoration, justifying our actions, complaining about how slow the internet connections are, dissecting the lives of idiots, when we're sitting in the middle of a full-blown miracle that is happening right here, right now. We're on a planet that somehow knows how to rotate on its axis and follow a defined path while it hurtles through space. Our hearts beat, we can see, we have love, laughter, language, living rooms, computers, compassion, cars, fire, fingernails, flowers, music, medicine, mountains, muffins. We live in a limitless universe overflowing with miracles. The fact that we aren't stumbling around in an inconsolable state of sobbing awe is appalling. The universe must be like, what more do I have to do to wake these bitches up? Make water, their most precious resource, rain down from the sky?" End quote. So that is one of my favorite book quotes ever, ever, ever. And you can see why. It doesn't say anything we don't know, and yet it reframes our entire world in a way where we remember it really is all magic after all. And not only is the universe magic, but you are pure magic. The entire book, as you can tell from the title, You Are a Badass, is about how amazing you are. In fact, there's a second quote about that I would love to read for you. This is what Jen says. "You are perfect. To think anything less is as pointless as a river thinking that it's got too many curves, or that it moves too slowly, or that its rapids are too rapid. Says who? You're on a journey with no defined beginning, middle, or end. There are no wrong twists and turns. There is just being. And your job is to be as you can be. This is why you're here. To shy away from who you truly are would leave the world you-less. You are the only you there is and ever will be. I repeat, you are the only you there is and ever will be. Do not deny the world its one and only chance to bask in your brilliance." Amen. So that is her other quote. As you can see, she adds a really playful, comical spin to highly deep and inspirational concepts. So if you want kind of a gentle entry into this world, or you are in a bit of a rut and you need to remember how beyond words incredible you are, I highly, highly recommend picking up You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. You will not ever regret the purchase. So that is book number 3. Book number 4 is, drum roll please, Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. There's a lot I could say about this book, as has been true for all of these books so far, but this one is mind-bending in the same way as Interstellar or The Matrix. It will completely transform the way you see the universe and the way you see your own capabilities. So I'll start by telling you Joe Dispenza's story because it's pretty miraculous. So back in 1986, Dr. Joe Dispenza was simply 23 years old. He had just started his own chiropractic practice in La Jolla, California, down by San Diego, and he was living the life. He was fit, he was happy, he was healthy, he was successful, and he was training for a triathlon. When he finally had the triathlon, he did great in the first segment, and then in the second segment, when he was on his bike, he was hit by a car and shattered 6 of his vertebrae. When he woke up in the hospital the next day, he was told by many doctors that he would never walk again and that the only option for his continuation in that physical body was to have this highly invasive surgery where these 2 metal rods would be placed side by side within his spine. And something within him thought, I don't choose that. I don't want that. That's not the future I envisioned for myself. There has to be another way. And so he got a second opinion and a third opinion and a fourth opinion and a fifth opinion. And every doctor he saw said, I'm sorry, Joe, you simply won't be able to stand or walk again. You're going to be quadriplegic and we have to do the surgery. There's no other way. And Joe thought, there has to be another way. And I'm going to find it because I have nothing left to lose. And so as he was laying in his bed, unable to move for weeks and weeks and weeks, he decided he was going to mentally visualize the healing of his own body over and over and over on repeat until he finally healed. And he had heard about these spontaneous remissions, spontaneous healings, people being able to use the power of their brain to transform their bodies. And so he had thought, what the heck? And he created essentially this very specific meditation for himself, this visualization meditation where he could use his own chiropractic knowledge, his knowledge of his body's anatomy, to perfectly envision his vertebrae rebuilding themselves. He knew exactly where each piece needed to go. And after 10 weeks, he stood again. And then he started walking again. After 12 weeks, only 2 weeks after that, he was back working at his chiropractic clinic and he was already training for his next triathlon. And when he had that experience and every doctor who had seen him said, I don't understand what you've just done, but it's a miracle, he decided, I have to figure this out. There are more people like me that don't want to accept the diagnosis that the doctors have given them. They don't want to accept the future that they're being handed. And for those people that want to choose another way, I have to be able to explain how this way works. And so he has spent decades and decades and decades studying neuroscience and doing so much research on the brain-body connection and how these spontaneous healings work. And he's gotten so good at this that he has helped thousands and thousands of people heal using nothing but the power of their own mind. And what's so amazing is that your mind doesn't know the difference between what is imagined and what is real. In fact, there is a quote in the book that I want to read you about that specific thing. So this is him talking about a particular study, and it even has nothing to do with healing. It's just another example of how this method, this philosophy, this ideology can be used for our benefit. So this is what it says in the book. Similar studies show the same kinds of results with muscle training. In a pioneering study at the Cleveland Clinic, 10 research subjects between the ages of 20 and 35 imagined flexing one of their biceps as hard as they could in 5 training sessions a week for 12 weeks. Every other week, the researchers recorded the subjects' electrical brain activity during their sessions and measured their muscle strength. By the end of the study, the subjects had increased their bicep strength by 13.5%, even though they hadn't actually been using their muscles at all. They maintained this gain for 3 months after the training session stopped. So that alone shows you that your mind does not know and your body does not know what is imagined versus what is real. By simply envisioning flexing my bicep every day, my bicep will get stronger, as will yours. And athletes use these concepts all the time without even thinking much of them. You know, football players will rehearse game plans in their head before a big game day. Or when I was a competitive dancer, you know, the night before a competition or a performance, I would rehearse the dance in my mind over and over and over. And little did I know that by doing that, my body was actually going to do the dance far better the next day than it would have if I hadn't done the mental rehearsal. So it just shows the incredible, incredible power of the brain. And not only that, but he goes far beyond the concepts of healing. He dives deep into the ideology, philosophy of manifestation. So that is mainly where I had found him, because I am a huge, huge fan of manifestation and the fact that all of us can create more of the things that we want in our life, and we can create the life we want for ourselves. And he shares how to do that using scientific studies. He has now done this with, thousands and thousands and thousands of participants. He leads retreats all over the world. He has workshops. He has guided meditations online. And so the stories and the studies that have been pouring in are innumerable. And it simply goes to show that this is real stuff and it is life-changing stuff. So I definitely recommend Becoming Supernatural if you or someone you know is struggling physically, mentally, emotionally, struggling with some sort of ailment, even a mystery disease or some sort of disability, and you think there might be another way, a way that they can heal their way out of it, I recommend this book. I also recommend this book if you are interested in manifesting the life you want in 2024, or at least getting started. I know I definitely will be. So another quote from this book that I adored is the following. He says, "Your personality creates your personal reality. Your personality is made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. So if you're going to create a new personal reality, that means you have to change your personality." So that is one of the general ideas he has behind manifestation. And he talks a lot more in depth about how to do that. But just from today's episode alone, I want you to remember what he says, that your personality is made up of 3 things: how you think, how you act, and how you feel. If you can start changing those 3 things by sheer power of your mind at first, you become a different person. And when you become a different person, a better version of who you want to be, you finally can attract the life you want, because energetically you are vibrating at the match of that life. You are vibrating at the frequency you need to vibrate at in order to attract or magnetize those things into your life. So that is my short synopsis, but as with all of these books, the author will explain it far, far better than I will. So that was book number 4, Becoming Supernatural. We are moving on to the third and final category. So, the third category is reminding us of what's really important in life. And this is where it gets really sweet and poignant, if you will. I like to think of poignant as almost bittersweet, but when something makes you like gentle smile and kind of tear up, that's what we're getting with these books. It's that warm, tingly feeling in your heart, that understanding of, oh, yeah, this is what it is about. I almost forgot. So the first one that is also one of my favorite books ever is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. I've read quite a few books by Mitch Albom, and they're all fantastic, but this one will tug at your heartstrings like none other. So Tuesdays with Morrie is actually a true story. So it's a nonfiction memoir about the main character, who's the author, Mitch Albom, who met weekly with one of his college professors, Morrie Schwartz, 16 years after he'd graduated from college, when Morrie was actually dying from ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. And Mitch would meet with Morrie every single Tuesday afternoon, and Morrie would teach him lessons about life and lessons about death. And the book, I mean, it's essentially the transcription of their actual conversations. It will move you to tears. It will remind you of all the important things in life. I keep saying this, but I honestly can't say enough about this book. This book would be a great read over the holidays if you just need something to reconnect you with your emotional self, with what you know to be true in the world of what matters and what love is and what fear is, but maybe you've forgotten. And it's definitely a great book if you want to enter 2024 having reprioritized what is important in your own life and reprioritize your values and what you give your time and attention to. So in Tuesdays with Morrie, as I mentioned, Morrie teaches Mitch many lessons. He mainly talks about the themes of love, fear, and meaning. There are lots more, but one of my favorites kind of falls into the category of meaning. And this is what Morrie said to Mitch. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they're chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others, devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to create something that gives you purpose and meaning. Oh my gosh. So keep in mind, that was a real quote said by a real dying man. And all of the quotes, all of the lessons in this book will make you take a look at your life in a whole different light and ask yourself how you can incorporate these lessons and ideas and wisdom from Morrie Schwartz. He is truly, I believe, a sage on this earth. He has since passed, but this book holds so much of his wisdom. And so if you are interested in learning about the regrets that people have on their deathbed and what people think about when they look back on their life and they decide what really mattered the whole way, I recommend Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. Oh, so good. And the sixth book that we have in that same category of reminding us of what's really important in life is none other than The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. This is one of the cutest, most wholesome books I've ever read in my entire life. So I say wholesome and cute, but it's also incredibly wise. So the Tao of Pooh, it essentially teaches the basic philosophies or frameworks behind Taoism, which is an ancient Chinese philosophy and religion that is all about finding the middle way, the balanced way where you can find peace and balance and harmony with all things in the universe. And so Taoism teaches to shy away from extremes so that you can find, as I just mentioned, the middle way, the balanced way. And there's a whole focus on just being, not pushing things, not forcing things, but allowing things to just be. There's this idea of almost surrendering to the way that things are so that you can stay in harmony with nature and the way of the universe. And so Taoism alone is beautiful. There's a book called the Tao Te Ching, which is essentially you could say the Bible of Taoism, written many, many years ago by Lao Tzu. But if you are interested in a philosophy that will remind you of how to find balance and harmony in your life, but told through the lens of some of your favorite childhood characters, Winnie the Pooh and all of his friends, this is the book for you. Even on the back, this is what it says. The How of Pooh? The Tao of who? The Tao of Pooh, in which it is revealed that one of the world's greatest Taoist masters isn't Chinese or a venerable philosopher, but is in fact none other than that effortlessly calm, still, reflective bear, A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. While Eeyore frets and Piglet hesitates and Rabbit calculates and Owl pontificates, Pooh just is. And that's a clue to the secret wisdom of the Taoists. So this book just makes me smile thinking about it alone. This book holds so much wisdom. I remember I read this in an entire, just one sitting on a Saturday afternoon a few years ago. And Cal and I were both reading at the time. And when I finished, I went over to him and I felt as if I had been meditating for hours. I had this still content calm about me and I couldn't stop smiling. And Cal and I had decided that we were going to walk somewhere to run an errand, and the entire walk, I can't even explain the feeling, but it's as if I was high off of some sort of breath work or meditation practice. This book really, really got me. And there are so many quotes I want to read to you, but I think I will read these two from my favorite chapter in the entire book. So there's this concept in the book of what they call the busy Baxons. And the busy Baxons are these beings that represent so many of us. It's those of us who are so busy all the time. We have no time to do anything. We're just achieving and producing all the time. We think that we are here just to create and do and achieve, and we're just so busy. And the reason why they call it the busy the Baxons, is because they talk about people who have up on their store window, it says, gone out, back soon, busy, back soon. And they just start calling these people the busy Baxons. And we are all the busy Baxons. And I think you will resonate when I read some of these quotes. So here is the beginning. Let's put it this way. If you want to be healthy, relaxed, and contented, just watch what a busy Baxon does and then do the opposite. There's one now, pacing back and forth, jingling the loose coins in his pocket, nervously glancing at his watch. He makes you feel tired just looking at him. The chronic Baxon always seems to have to be going somewhere, at least on a superficial physical level. He doesn't go out for a walk, though. He doesn't have time. So that's the first quote, just to give you a little sneak peek into what a busy Baxon is and how we all have the Baxon within us. But as an illustration of the opposite of a busy Baxon and an illustration of what a Taoist might be like, we have Winnie the Pooh. And this is one of my favorite excerpts from the book ever. Okay. Say, Pooh, why aren't you busy? I said. Because it's a nice day, said Pooh. Yes, but well, why ruin it, he said. But you could be doing something important, I said. I am, said Pooh. Oh, doing what? Listening, he said. Listening to what? To the birds and that squirrel over there. And what are they saying, I asked. That it's a nice day, said Pooh. But you know that already, I said. Yes, but it's always good to hear that somebody else thinks so too, he replied. Well, you could be spending your time getting educated by listening to the radio instead, I said. Oh, that thing? Certainly. How else will you know what's going on in the world, I said. By going outside, said Pooh. Well, now just listen to this, Pooh. 30,000 people were killed today when 5 jumbo airliners collided over downtown Los Angeles, the radio announced. What does that tell you about the world, asked Pooh. You're right. What are the birds saying now, I asked. That it's a nice day, said Pooh. It certainly is, even if the Baxons are too busy to enjoy it. So that is one of my favorite excerpts ever from The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. And I think that excerpt just goes to show that Winnie the Pooh has it figured out. It's all about the simple life, the slow life, the good life, the present life, a life where we step outside just to enjoy the sunshine. Maybe you step outside and you don't even have to go for a walk, or you just open the window and listen to the birds. I mean, when was the last time any of us did that? I can't remember for myself. So let that be a reminder from the one and only, the wise and friendly and lovable Winnie the Pooh, that sometimes the simple and slow life is the good life. And with that, that is all 6 of my favorite spiritual books ever. I would love to hear how these books resonated with you. If you yourself are interested in any of them, if you've read any of them, what are some of your favorite spiritual books? I'm always looking for more. So let's get that conversation started. Of course, you can comment on this YouTube video or on my Instagram, anywhere. Just communicate with me. I'd love to hear from you. And as a reminder of the giveaway, remember, these are the 4 steps that you can take to join the giveaway raffle if you want to win one of these books. So step number 1 is to rate and review the podcast wherever you find your podcasts, whether that is the Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, whatever, wherever you can find your podcasts, rate and review. The second is to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is Devon Rochelle Hein. So DevonRochelle Heyn. So subscribe to YouTube. The third, follow my Instagram at It's All Magic Podcast. And the fourth is bring 2 friends along on this journey with you by tagging them in this Instagram post. You'll know that this is the Instagram post because it will be the first Instagram post when this episode is uploaded, and it will be the giveaway post where I am talking about these rules of how you can enter into the giveaway raffle so that you might be one of the lucky 3 people to win a book. And remember, when you've done all 4 of these things, you can either DM me, so direct message me on Instagram. Again, it's at It's All Magic Podcast, or you can email me at itsallmagicpodcast@gmail.com. That was a mouthful, but I hope that made sense. If you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out to me on any of those platforms that I've mentioned through today's episode. I would love to hear from you. I am truly making this podcast to create a sense of community. As I've mentioned, I want to bring more love and light and positivity and joy into this world. And I know that by you listening, you want the same thing. So let's create that together. Let's create this community. Let's create the communication around these topics that we love to talk about. And with that, I will wish you farewell for now. I cannot wait to see you again next week. And until then, bye-bye, my friends.